A lot of guys over 6 feet tall can dunk a basketball, but not many who only have one leg.
These words float around you a lot: disability, disabled, amputee, amputation, cancer survivor. But on the court, it doesn't exist.
Koloa Wolfgramm plays forward on the AMP-1 Nike basketball team. He and other amputees travel around the United States in a league designed to show it is not about what you cannot do, but about what you can do.
Every amputee has a chip on their shoulder. It's something they have to prove, every single one of them. Every single one of them has to prove that not only can they play basketball, but they can play it better than someone who has 2 legs.
Koloa is a versatile athlete with great mobility on the court because he has a foot where most people have a knee.
When I went through cancer, I remember someone told me one time, decide to live right now. I said, okay, I'm going to decide right now, 4 years old, I'm going to decide that I'm going to live.
Doctors discovered bone cancer called Ewing sarcoma when Koloa was only 4 years old. He spent weeks and months in the hospital, watching others around him die.
My friend that I met yesterday, we played bingo together, has now died. Or that my friend that I was with last month, is still alive and he's doing well. Or my friend over there, last week he had 2 legs, now he has 1, or now he has none. I mean, that became a normal part of your life.
We would have roommates, and every time there was a mom, I would always ask her, do you believe in God? One answer that always stuck out to me was, she said, I do now because I have to. And I remember being so grateful that I already had that faith before something huge came and hit me and I had to decide what I believed in. I have a 4-year-old right now, and so then when I look at him, I'm like, oh my gosh, he was really that young. So it was hard and difficult to see somebody with so much life, and 4-year-olds are running around and everything, and then when you see them go through chemo and it kind of drains.
He survived 12 months of chemotherapy, but his femur bone did not survive, so doctors removed the femur and replaced it with an expanding artificial bone.
My body accepted the foreign metal in my leg. It fused really well with my bone, and they grew together. Everything went pretty well.
But as he grew, the artificial bone broke 3 times, requiring a 6-month stint in a full-body cast to repair. At age 13, Koloa had enough with the artificial bone and all the problems that came with it.
I knew that if I continued like that, the biggest thing for me, honestly, was that I wouldn't be able to serve a mission. And I knew that unless I could somehow drastically change the situation I was in, I would not be able to serve a mission. I would not be able to play sports. I would not be able to do those things.
His doctors told him about an alternative surgery called rotationplasty, where they remove his damaged upper leg and replace it with his healthy lower leg.
The family prayed about it, and there's a lot of decision making, and finally the parents said, Koloa, you make the decision.
The doctors amputated the upper leg at the hip, then rotated the lower leg and inserted the knee joint into the hip socket, putting a backwards foot next to the other knee. The procedure took more than 13 hours and then another hour to put on another full-body cast. Koloa says he had to draw on a higher power to get through it.
As I was standing there, that it was the most tiring, and at one point I nearly lost consciousness, and they kind of had to rouse me again so I could be standing up. And I remember I was just so tired, and my body felt like it was just losing all of its strength, and it felt like I was losing this battle and I wasn't able to stand up, and they would have to figure something else out. And at that point of greatest alarm, at that moment of greatest fatigue, I remember feeling 2 other people come behind me and lift me up and hold me up from the back where the bed was. And I remember being so grateful, and they held me up for the next 15 minutes as they were able to finish it. And I could feel their hands on my shoulder and on my lower back holding me up. And I remember turning around and looking, and there was no one there. And then I firmly believe in obviously heavenly messengers and angels being able to help us in times that we need it. The hymn aptly says, I'll strengthen thee, I'll help thee to stand. And how firm foundation.
The rotationplasty surgery gave Koloa the ability to have a working hip and a working knee that attached more easily to his prosthetic leg. Koloa's family watched him struggle to learn how to fit in with 2 right feet.
What do you tell the kids?
Okay, no, because it's too hard to explain that, like, I had cancer.
Yeah, and the whole surgery thing
And then everything. So then I just say either, there's like a couple different stories.
It's on! A couple
I know. The first one is like, I got in a fight, and like against like 4 gangsters. And they had like
4 gangsters.
And they had like knives. And then I beat up all of them except for one. And then he twisted my leg around.
The one that got away.
And then they had to cut off half of it because the bone was bad, and they were gonna put it back after it got fixed. So that, and then the other one I told little kids that they believe it, is that I went to the beach and a shark ate my leg.
And they believe it? What do
They
do?
feel so sorry for you.
I can't believe they believe it.
They're gullible if you know how to really, like, you have to act serious.
Well, he told Zion. What did you tell Zion? No, Zion. When Zion first came up and he saw it, he goes, Koloa, it's backwards. Because I think he knew that the surgery, but he didn't know it was going to be backwards. And Koloa goes, it is? The doctors, oh my gosh. And Zion was like, oh no. He's like, it is. The doctors, what they do? It's so funny. I was like, Koloa, stop it.
I remember a kid at school teasing him and say, you know what? Fight him if he's if he's teasing you. You know, you don't let people do that to you. So.
And he did. Kind of got in a fight the next day. But he said, my dad told me I could.
The functioning hip and knee allowed Koloa to play on his high school basketball team and become a member of the U.S. Paralympic bobsled team.
He was trained in New York, went there, had scholarship, and learned how to, their amputee bobsled. And you sit on the bobsled and you have your 2 little hockey pucks, and he got really good at it.
Koloa did well in bobsled. He was even selected by Nike to participate in an Air Jordan commercial.
The Rise Above Limits documentary series, presented by Jordan Brand, profiles amateur athletes from around the globe as they face personal, societal, and environmental challenges. In this episode, we meet Scott Odom, founder of AMP1 Basketball, a team of amputee ballers from across the country who unite to play stand-up basketball. Scott and his teammates never give up on their dreams. Together, they compete at a high level against able-bodied players, and this is how they rise above limits.
Wow, let's go play. Let's go shoot right.
Good D, Rich. Good D. Good shot, RJ. Nice. Good work. Come back. Good job, guys. That's it.
See these guys excited and passionate. I'm in awe. We play as much basketball as we can, but at the same time, we can relate to each other. All amputees go through about the same stuff. Judged, looked at different. But to us, you gotta laugh, you gotta have fun, you gotta make the best of the situation.
6. All right, guys, let's huddle up. This will be a full court game. Played against an able-bodied team. We're not disabled athletes, we're athletes, right? So let's just go out there and have some fun, all right?
And 1 on 3, and 1 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
And 1!
We're underdogs. Being the underdog, you always want to come out on top. You always want to prove people that, you're not handicapped. For somebody to respect me as a basketball player when I'm an amputee is like the greatest compliment I could get. When you're doing something that you love, the passion comes with it. It's just something that's inside me.
He also became a recognized star in his religious community, recording this commercial about being a Mormon.
When I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with a malignant bone tumor called Ewing sarcoma in my right femur. The doctors took out the cancerous bone and put in a metal bone that would expand as I grew. When I was 13, the bone had kept breaking, it had worn away my hip completely, it was dislocated, and I couldn't put any weight on it. So it was time to make a decision. My parents didn't want to make the decision to amputate my leg for me. They really wanted to wait until I was old enough to decide for myself. The doctor's best hope was for me to walk, and I took that into account. And it was a little scary because, you know, I may not be able to play sports again, but I prayed about it and felt that it was the right thing to do. They said it'd be really hard for me to play sports, that it would be too weak to, and so I kind of took that as a challenge. Like, oh, you know, you said I can't play sports, I won't be able to. I'm gonna prove you otherwise. I'd never played before, and I'd always wanted to play. I'd always had that desire to play basketball. It was one of my favorite sports to watch and to see my brothers and sisters play. So that very first day I walked to the park and I played basketball with everyone else. Because that was the very first time I played, I fell in love with it, and I didn't take it for granted. Every day I'd get home from school, I'd get my homework done, do some chores, grab something to eat, and then I was out the door playing basketball 6 days a week. A couple months later at school, I saw some members of the high school basketball team. They were playing at lunch, and I decided to play with them and kind of measure my skills against them. And as I played with them, this thought in my head started to form that, you know, this is something I can do. I can compete with them. In April, I tried out for the basketball team, for the summer basketball team, and made it. By the time school started, I was made captain of the high school basketball team. It's been 3 years since I had that surgery, since I had my leg amputated, and I can honestly say it's one of the best things that's happened in my life. As I was playing sports and as I got into that world and that mindset of an athlete, I really saw how the gospel is very much like sports and how it affected my life. In sports, you're always striving to be the best. You're always striving to do the small changes that'll make you better. For the gospel, for me, it gave me that hope that even though I'm not perfect, even though I have had trials and I've had afflictions, and, you know, there have been some things in my life that have been pretty hard, that it's all just it's temporal. It helps having an internal perspective, and the gospel really gave me that, is that, you know, I may not have a leg for this life, but I know that one day I will. And that is what really gives me hope, and that really centers me really in the gospel, is that I know in the future that I will have a perfect body.
In the world today, we face difficulties and challenges, some of which can seem truly daunting. However, with God on our side, we cannot fail. As we bear His holy priesthood worthily, we will be victorious. This is not a time for fear, brethren, but rather a time for faith. A time for each of us who holds the priesthood to be his best self. The strength which we earnestly seek in order to meet the challenges of a complex and changing world can be ours when, with fortitude and resolute courage, we stand and declare with Joshua, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." To this divine truth I testify.
Koloa felt that God had blessed him and he wanted to show his appreciation. So he resigned from the bobsled team and put his basketball career on hold for 2 years to serve as a missionary in London, England, speaking Mandarin Chinese, a job that requires putting your best foot forward, knocking on doors 8 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week.
There were times we were knocking on a door and I didn't know it, but the screw that kept my leg in had rusted just from the rain. We knock on the door, you talk to them, turn around, turn away, and the leg just breaks off. And they're kind of just looking at you and looking at your leg over there, and they're like, like what? And you're kind of apologizing, "Hey, sorry, my leg just broke off in front of your doorstep."
Walking day after day caused Elder Wolfgramm a lot of pain. He spent many nights suffering from blisters and bruises, hoping they would heal enough so he could work the next day.
I was given a blessing before I went out in my setting apart that every morning, if I worked hard the night before, that my leg would be healed each and every day. On those nights where it was really painful, and I wake up the next morning and the leg would be completely fine. It'd be just as if I had spent 3 months, letting it just take care of itself. There would be no scabs or blisters or scars, and that was a big testament to me that the Lord, knows what we are, and knows what we're doing, and knows what we're capable of, and knows our desires.
Soon after returning from his mission, Koloa began dating Rebecca Moore.
We go to the Provo Temple, and he's like, "Let's get out." And I was like, "I don't want to get out of the car. It's freezing." He's like, "No, let's get out and talk." And I was like, "Okay, well, is it bad?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I was like, what the heck? The things that he's like saying to me are correlating with I'm breaking up with you. And I was just like, and so I like have my arms crossed and I was like, okay, well, like, are you gonna say it? Or he's like, there's only one thing missing like in our relationship. And I was like, what? And then he turns around and like gets on his knee and I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Koloa and Rebecca got married on February 12, 2016 in the Ogden LDS Temple.
Every single night I would include in my prayers, please bless my future wife, and whoever it is, wherever she is. It is one of the most sweetest spiritual experiences to meet the lady. To meet the lady that you've been praying for 16, 17 years. And to finally meet her and say, wow, you're the one that I've been praying over since the time I could barely walk. And to meet her and say, you're the right one for me.
I think the hardest thing for me was that, everybody looks and I'm like, okay, well also like his face is super great. Like, I don't know why you're just looking at his leg. And so in the beginning, like it never like bothered me that he didn't have a leg. It bothered me that it bothered other people. For me, it was just, that there's so much more about someone than their prosthetic or their amputation. Like, yeah, that made them who they are, but there's so much more.
Koloa didn't play any sports for 2 years, so he began working out with his brother-in-law, a former NFL defensive lineman, to get back into shape.
I remember when he wanted to dunk. People told us, dunk. Yeah, right, you got one leg. Then next thing you know, he's actually hitting the rim. And then he's getting rejected by the rim, which is pretty hard to get the ball up that high. The next thing you know, he's dunking. Well, I'll never let him dunk on me, though.
Back on the Nike Amp 1 team, Koloa again has game and a great story of inspiration.
Even among professional athletes, I don't think you'll find passion and desire like you'll find among amputee athletes. When you're on the basketball court and you're playing, really the only thing that matters is you versus the other team. All of a sudden disabilities start to disappear, and I said this before, there are 2 times where it's so easy to forget that I'm an amputee. 1 is while I play basketball, and 2 is when I was on a mission. It's because everyone is playing with such intensity, because one is to even be able to play basketball as an amputee, there was a fight that went on in the amputee's life. To even be able to get to that point to stand on the court and say I can play, there have been years of rehabilitation, of hours and hours within the gym, and all that kind of funnels into a climax when you get on the court. And you have that from every single player. Every single player is bringing that to the field.
Koloa's family and friends say he has taken a negative and turned it into a positive, inspiring people to trust in God and do the best they can no matter what happens.
It was a good example of somebody who was never stopped, who could always keep going. And for somebody who didn't have any impairments like that, it was hard to believe that someone like him could do such great things. I should be able to too if I don't have any impairments.
I'm struggling with 2 legs. And we're both hiking the Y, and we get up there, and I guess we sat out there for a little bit. He turns to me while we're sitting on the Y, he said, Lonnie, I'm grateful God took my leg.
Koloa says people are not disabled by what their body tells them they cannot do, but they become crippled by listening to what their mind tells them they can't do.
When you tell yourself, I can't do that, I really just can't do that, that's when it becomes a disability. And so I've never looked at it that way, and I think it was a great opportunity to prove to myself, hey, I can do something if I wanted to. I can go from never having played basketball in my life, never having walked for the last 10 years, to being a captain of a basketball team within a year. And that motivated me a lot to continue to go on and figure out what else I could do. You can't control what happens to you. Things happen to us all the time. But decide how you're going to react. And then once you make a decision to do something, or to be something, or to believe something, or to achieve, or to do, then stick with that.